Hi everybody, it's Celestine. It's been a while, I know, but I moved to Salem, and I've been going to grad school. I finished first 2 semesters. I'm currently in summer classes, so basically, been kind of busy. Sorry about that, but I did want to take a moment to. I'm actually going to film a couple of videos right now. This particular video is about something that I have been excited about for a while, wanted to try for a long time, and couldn't because there were none where I was living before, but there are a ton where I'm living now in the Boston area, and that is LARP. If you don't know what LARP is, I'm going to steal from Momo O'Brien. I'm going to put a link to her channel in the doobly-doo. And so LARP is basically, it stands for live action role play, and it is an adult game of make-believe. So picture when you were a kid and you were running around with your friends, your cousins, your whoever, and you were all, playing it, being pirates or being cops or being, whatever it was that you played as a kid. Imagine that, but for grown-ups, with a structure and with rules and that kind of thing. It's so much fun. Like I said, I wanted to do it for a very long time, but there were just no LARPs in the area where I could easily and accessibly get to them. But like I said, I'm in the Boston area now, and there are absolutely tons of LARPs, so many LARPs. Now, if you've never heard of LARP before, then, or maybe you've heard of LARP, but you kind of have only had an experience with looking at one kind of LARP, I'm just going to say there are so many different kinds of LARPs. It is insane how many kinds of LARPs there are. There's fantasy LARPs, there's urban fantasy LARPs, there's steampunk LARPs, there's dystopian arcs, there's science fiction LARPs, there's just, I can't even, there's so many different kinds. I am currently playing in one LARP because that's the kind of person I am. I am not really the kind of person who can do more than one thing at a time and still focus. That's actually another video. I did get some diagnoses for some things such as unspecified attention deficit disorder, but like I said, that's a whole other video. The LARP that I'm currently playing in is called Attaway, and it is a Decopunk LARP. And what that means is that instead of Victorian England, like 1800s, it's 1920s American Prohibition themed. So all that like Art Deco and that kind of thing. So I said it's Prohibition themed, but it's set in a world other than Earth. So it's not actually the United States. It's set in a town or a city-state really, called Brightboro. And the prohibited substance is not alcohol. In this world, there are people called gifted who have magical abilities. The non-gifted people said, hey, we want in on that action. That sounds really fun. So they created a substance called brew, which temporarily simulates magical abilities. So that's the substance that's actually prohibited in this world, not alcohol, brew. And our particular small setting for this LARP is an illegal brewery called Attaway. So basically, if you're playing an Attaway, you're a criminal because you're making illegal brew, or you're selling illegal brew, you're running the illegal brew to the speakeasies that sell it. Attaway has a really great structure. There are 5 families. You could be a brewer in charge of actually making the brew. You can be a runner who's in charge of, running messages or running brew to drop off points or things like that. You can be a tinker, and if you're a tinker, then what you do is you make things. You make armor, you make weapons, you make that kind of stuff. You're the tank, and if there's any kind of combat situation, that's you. You can also be a grower. Growers are like the healers, the physicians, the doctors, that kind of stuff. And you can be gifted. So in the world of Attaway, the gifted are kind of the second-class citizens. They're not always treated the best in Brightboro, but in Attaway, gifted are welcome. So my character is a brewer. Her name is Melly Flynn, and she I'm not going to go through everything right now because I don't really want to talk about every single little thing that's happened in this LARP, because we've had 2 events so far. It's a brand new LARP. I'm so lucky to be involved in this particular LARP because the people who run it are just great. And that's kind of the stuff that I want to talk about. I want to talk about LARP in general, and I want to talk about why this particular LARP is such a great one. So the directors, the staff, the people who came up with this setting, they came up with all the rules, and they came up with the currency system that's used in game, and the system of how you actually make things. They're amazing people. They're so kind, and they're so focused on player safety and player involvement and enjoyment. They want you to have fun, and they want you to do it in a way that is comfortable and safe for you. And me being me, as you can see, I'm kind of a larger person. That is kind of an issue for me. There are some things that I simply cannot do. This past event, E2, was this past weekend, and Sunday I pushed myself past my limits and immediately had staff support and help recommendations. They asked me what could be done in the future to make sure that I don't push myself too far anymore. And I love that about this particular LARP. There are some LARPs that may not take this so seriously as they do. But the staff of Attaway is just so amazing. The other players are really amazing. When I pushed myself too far on Sunday, another player, I had to signal to him that I couldn't continue. And there are particular signals that you use in game to signal that you're okay with the LARP, you're okay with the scene. Maybe you're not so okay with the scene and, you know, keep going but kind of slow, or I can't keep going, I have to leave, no questions asked. So I had to signal, I have to stop, and I didn't intend for him to stop, but he did. He completely stopped. He came to see me, asked me what I needed, went in to get some water. When I asked him to, speaking of water, I'm talking a lot, my mouth's kind of dry. I'm on a lot of allergy medications now, and that means that my mouth gets kind of dry. But he, as a player, he wasn't even staff. He went above and beyond to help me out, and all of the players are like that. Every single player will stop and help you if you need it. If they can answer a question out of game that you need answered, they'll do that for you. It's just a really great experience, and I am really, really lucky that I found Attaway and chose it as my first LARP, because I think that almost any other LARP, especially one that's very combat focused, whereas Attaway is not, would probably be a little too much for me. But Attaway is not combat focused. You can get into combat situations if you want to, and let staff know. And that's the thing about this particular LARP, and I know that other LARPs are like this as well. If you want your character to go through a particular type of event, just email the staff, let them know. They'll make sure it happens, somehow. And that actually happened. I'm going to make another video all about what my character's been going through. Like I said, I don't want to go into it in this particular video. But Attaway also has a social combat system, wherein it's not physical combat, but you're having social interactions that can also have an effect on you. In this LARP, you have 5 vitality. You start out with 5 vitality. And in physical combat, you take a hit, you lose 1. If you take a hit from something like this, these are red fist buffers. If you fight with these, this represents you using your fists and no actual weapon. Or if you take a hit from one of those, you lose 1 vitality. If you get to 0, you go to bleeding and crying, and you need the help of a grower. If you are attacked by somebody who has an actual weapon, a blunt weapon like a sledgehammer or a wrench, all buffer, all made of foam, all made completely safe so that nobody will actually get hurt, then that's a brutal weapon. You take brutal damage, and that takes you down from 5 vitality to 0 immediately. Guns are allowed, Nerf guns, not actual firearms, of course. Nerf guns are allowed. If you take damage from a Nerf gun, that is lethal. So that means you go not only to 0 vitality, you go past bleeding and crying straight to mortal jeopardy. And not only do you need a grower at that point, but you also need a gifted who can assist a grower in surgery. Not all gifted can do that, because not all gifted have what they need. They need a particular deck of cards which will tell the grower whether or not you survived, and if you did survive, if you did so without complications, or if you have a complication associated with it. So it's a really good system. Now with the social combat, that's with calls such as intimidate or resist, charm. You can resist those, but every time you resist an intimidate or a charm, you lose a vitality point. And if you go down to 0, then you can actually go into bleeding and crying from a social situation. And that actually happened at the end of E1 with an NPC. And that's another thing about LARP. This LARP or other LARPs, if you've never done a LARP before, if it sounds interesting to you, but you're not quite sure if it's something that you really want to get into, you can always volunteer to NPC at a LARP that looks interesting. NPC means non-player character. That means that you don't have to come up with your own character. You don't have to come up with their backstory or any events. You go to a LARP and then staff will tell you what they want you to do. In one particular scene, you may play a constable. In another scene, you may play a completely different character, and you're only there to forward the plot for the player characters or PCs. And then if you decide that you like LARP, well then you can say, hey, next event, I want a PC, or maybe I'll keep NPCing for this game and find another game that I can play as a player character. And it's so versatile. All of the other players that play in Attaway that are veteran role players, I have not heard a single bad thing about this game. Like, everybody loves this game. The new players love it. The veteran players love it. It's done really well. The directors and the staff have years of experience LARPing themselves, so they know how to do it. They know the things that they liked from playing previous games, things that they wish they had seen in previous games. Also, another really good point, a really good thing that we do at Attaway is after each event, we have a decompression. The first event, it was led by a staff member, but from now on, after that, they expected it to be run by a player. And what we do is we sit around and we just talk. We talk about the things that happened over the course of the event, but we make sure that we talk about our character in third person and use their name. The point of decompression is to separate yourself from your character so that there's no bleed. And what that means is that your character's emotions and thoughts bleed into your real life. And you don't want that, because the things that your character is going through are likely to be very, very intense and emotional, and not something that you want to bring with you into your real life. And a lot of players do experience bleed if they don't have any sort of decompression. Some players still experience it even with decompression, but having decompression actually will help mitigate the effects, and maybe it won't be so bad. We also have a Slack group that for this particular LARP that we get to talk to everybody outside of game. And so we have a decompression channel on our Slack group. So if you didn't get to participate, or if you think of something else later on, or you start feeling something that you think might be bleed, then you can go on the decompression channel and talk about it there. Guys, y'all, people, everybody, I love this LARP so much. I love LARPing. The bad thing about LARPing is it can be expensive. There are costumes to think about. There are weapons to think about. But most LARPs that I know of are very, very forgiving of first-time players or new players. The first time I went, I didn't have these lovely red boffer fists. I didn't have anything except for a very simple costume. And actually, two of the experienced players, they hosted a weapons making event. They helped get the materials. They ordered the materials to make these. They invited us into their home so that we could sit around, and they taught us how to make these weapons. And actually, one of the other players didn't make for Boffer Fist, he made a Boffer Sledgehammer. But, you know, they taught us how to do it. They were very, very good, very nice, very helpful and understanding of those of us who didn't know what we were doing. And, ooh, something else that I did not have. Something else that I did not have in the first event that I added to my costume on the second event was this lovely piece right here. This is a brooch. My shirt has a bow that ties right here, but it's very bad about staying tied. It doesn't want to. So I figured I would use this. I pin it to the bow and it helps keep the bow closed. So yeah, that was something that worked out really nicely for me the second LARP. And I made a backstory for it. I said that if anybody asked about it, I said that it was my character's, Melly, it was her mother's, that she decided to get out of storage. She has some family issues that are going to come to the fore later on. So, gosh, it's been 15 minutes, almost 16 minutes that I've been talking about this, and I could keep talking, but I'm not going to, because I do have another video that I want to record. So I'm just going to leave it there, and you know, you can always comment or message me if you want to have more questions about LARP. I do plan on making more videos about LARP in the future. I do want to make a video about my character's journey so far, and then keep making more videos after each event. It could be some more decompression for me to talk about it. That's it for this video. So I love all of you. Everybody have a great day, and remember that you are made of stardust.